stop what you're doing right now. For 20 years, you've seen the Duggar family through the lens of Jim Bob's cameras, but today that lens has shattered. I'm Derick Dillard, and I'm here to tell you something that Jim Bob Duggar never wanted you to hear. Jana Duggar, the daughter who was supposed to be the pillar of the empire, has officially declared war. But she didn't do it with a lawsuit or a scandal. She did it with a secret vow. As I speak, Jana's in Nebraska hiding her newborn son from the very cameras that raised her. I've seen the legal threats. I've heard the frantic calls from the big house, and I've witnessed the moment Jana told her father, "My son is not your content." In the next 60 minutes, I am going to pull back the curtain on the most significant rebellion in reality TV history. From the secret hospital safe zone to the broken contracts that are costing Jim Bob millions, the Duggar Empire isn't just shaking, it is falling. And the one person who kept it together is the one who just brought it down. Stay tuned, because the truth about Jana's anti-media vow starts right now. To understand why the Duggar Empire is crumbling today, we have to go back to the moment the first brick was pulled from the wall. Everyone thinks Jana's move to Nebraska was a sudden romantic decision after her wedding to Stephen Wisman. But as someone who has been on the inside of these legal battles, I can tell you this was a tactical, year-long operation. Jana Duggar spent over 30 years living as the dutiful daughter in Tontitown. She saw what happened to Jill and me when we spoke out. She saw the iron-clad contracts Jim Bob forced everyone to sign. She knew that if she wanted a life for herself, and more importantly, a private life for her future children, she couldn't just leave. She had to escape. For months, Jana was secretly working with Stephen to establish a safe zone in Lincoln, Nebraska. While the TLC cameras were filming mundane segments at the big house, Jana was quietly moving her personal belongings out, bit by bit. She wasn't just moving furniture, she was moving her legal residency. You see, Jim Bob's control over his adult children is tied to the family brand contracts. By moving across state lines before the baby was even a thought, Jana was positioning herself outside the reach of the Arkansas courts where Jim Bob has his deepest influences. I remember a conversation Jill had with Jana months before the wedding. Jana didn't look like a nervous bride. She looked like a general preparing for battle. She told Jill, "I'm not just getting a husband, I'm getting my freedom." Jim Bob thought he was in control of the wedding special. He thought he would have the rights to the first year of her married life. What he didn't realize was that Stephen Wisman and his family had already provided Jana with a new legal team. They reviewed every filming waiver. Jim Bob tried to slip into the wedding prep, and one by one, Jana refused to sign them. The tension at the compound was thick enough to cut with a knife. Jim Bob was losing his Cinderella, and for the first time in 20 years, he didn't have a signed paper to stop her. This wasn't just a move, it was the first stage of a revolution. If you want to know the exact moment the Duggar family hierarchy was destroyed, it wasn't at a wedding or on a TV special. It happened in the sterile, quiet hallway of a Nebraska hospital. This is the story of the stand-off that Jim Bob Duggar never thought would happen. The moment his eldest daughter looked at his power and said, "No further." When Jana went into labor with her first child, the atmosphere wasn't just filled with the typical nerves of a new mother. It was thick with the tension of a security operation. You see, for years, birth in the Duggar family was a public event. It was a content milestone. Jim Bob and the TLC cameras were always there, often entering the room before the mother had even caught her breath. But Jana had spent months preparing for a different kind of birth. She had worked with the hospital's administration and the Wisman family to create what we called the safe zone. Jim Bob and Michelle flew into Nebraska expecting the usual treatment. They expected to walk past the nurse's station, cameras in hand, or at least their personal film crew, ready to document the miracle grandchild for the brand. But when they reached the labor and delivery wing, they hit a wall, and that wall was made of paper and steel. Jana had signed a strict privacy mandate that specifically listed who was allowed in the room. For the first time in history, Jim Bob Duggar's name was on the DO-Nout ADM IT list for a major family event. I've heard the accounts of what happened in that hallway. Jim Bob tried to use his head of the family authority. He tried to tell the security staff that there was a misunderstanding. He even tried to reach Jana's husband, Stephen, to counsel him on the importance of family unity during such a blessing. But Stephen didn't budge. He stood by the door not as a submissive son-in-law, but as a husband protecting his wife's peace. Inside the room, Jana was finally in control. No bright studio lights, no producers whispering in her ear, no father watching her most vulnerable moments to see how they would play on screen. Outside, Jim Bob was realizing that his influence didn't cross state lines. The Cinderella he had controlled for 35 years had built a fortress he couldn't penetrate. This standoff proved that the Duggar name no longer opened every door. Jana's baby was born into a world of privacy while Jim Bob sat in a waiting room, treated like any other stranger. The message was clear. The empire stops at this door. No, we get to the part that Jim Bob Duggar truly fears the law. For decades, he controlled his children using what he called family partnership agreements. These weren't just simple permissions to film. They were ironclad lifestyle contracts that effectively signed away the children's rights to their own image, their stories, and even their financial independence. But as an attorney, I saw the flaws in his armor long ago, and Jana's new legal team saw them too. In this segment, I want to break down the legal loophole that allowed Jana to walk away without a lawsuit. You see, most of the contracts the Duggar children signed were executed in the state of Arkansas under the assumption that the family would always remain a single unit. But when Jana moved to Nebraska and married into the Wisman family, the legal jurisdiction shifted. The Wismans didn't just bring flowers to the wedding. They brought a team of sophisticated lawyers who specialize in intellectual property and privacy law. They discovered that many of Jana's earlier signatures were obtained while she was under undue influence, a legal term meaning she wasn't truly free to say no because of her financial and emotional dependence on her father. Furthermore, because the 19 Kids and Counting on brands had officially ended their run on TLC, the perpetual clauses Jim Bob claimed were actually on shaky ground. Jana's team sent a quiet but devastating legal notice to the Duggars' attorneys. It essentially said, a Jana Duggar Wisman is now a resident of Nebraska. Any attempt to use her image, her husband's image, or her child's image for commercial gain without a new independent contract will be met with a multi-million-dollar injunction. Jim Bob was backed into a corner. If he fought her in court, all the dark financial secrets of the Duggar brand would be made public during discovery. He couldn't risk the world seeing how the money was actually handled, so he had to let her go. He had to watch as his star daughter used the very law he thought he controlled to gain her total independence. This wasn't just a loophole, it was a masterclass in legal chess. Jana didn't just leave the house, she tore up the lease and burned the contract. Let's talk about the one thing Jim Bob Duggar values as much as his reputation, the bottom line. For years, the Duggar children weren't just family members. They were units of production for a multi-million-dollar media machine. Every wedding, every birth, and every life update was a paycheck. But with Jana's anti-media vow, that machine has ground a halt, and the financial fallout is staggering. Based on what I've seen from previous TLC contracts and the current market value of reality TV specials, a Jana wedding and first baby event was estimated to be worth anywhere between $2 to $3 million in licensing fees and sponsorships. Jim Bob had spent years grooming Jana to be the face of the brand after the scandals involving Josh. She was the golden child who was supposed to secure the family's financial future for the next decade. But when Jana moved to Nebraska and voided those contracts, she didn't just take her life back. She took that money off the table. Think about it, no wedding special, no birth of a new generation episode, and no sponsored Instagram reveals. For a man who has built his entire empire on the commodification of his children's milestones, this is a total collapse. And it's not just about the lost TV deals. The Duggar brand relied on a constant stream of new, clean content to keep their YouTube and social media ad revenue high. Without Jana's life to sell, the engagement on their official channels has plummeted. I've heard from sources close to the family that Jim Bob is scrambling. He's looking for the next star among the younger children, but the world has changed. The younger kids are seeing Jana's freedom, and they want it too. Jim Bob isn't just losing his daughter, he's losing his primary asset. In the world of business, we call this a total loss. Jana walked away with her soul, and she left her father with a pile of useless contracts and a rapidly shrinking bank account. The Duggar Empire isn't just falling, it's going bankrupt. If you travel 600 miles north of Tontitown, Arkansas, you'll find a place that Jim Bob Duggar has no power over. This is Nebraska, the place Jana now calls home. But it's more than just a new house. For Jana, it's a sanctuary. In this segment, I want to pull back the curtain on what her life looks like now, and more importantly, how the Wisman family has become the shield she never had. The Wismans are a large, musical family, much like the Duggars on the surface. But look closer, and you'll see a world of difference. When Jana married Stephen, she didn't just join another family. She joined a support system that values privacy over publicity. I've spoken to people close to the situation, and the transition has been remarkable. For the first time in 35 years, Jana isn't waking up to a production schedule. She isn't being told what to wear for a talking head interview. Stephen Wisman has been her rock. In the Duggar world, husbands were often expected to fall in line with Jim Bob's media machine, but Stephen is different. He's a successful businessman with his own interests, and he made it clear from day one that his wife and child were not for sale. The Wisman compound in Nebraska has become a fortress of privacy. There are no paparazzi drones allowed, and the family has a strict no social media leak policy when it comes to Jana's newborn. I remember hearing about a recent visit where Jim Bob tried to bring a photographer friend along to Nebraska under the guise of a casual family visit. The Wismans politely but firmly informed him that no professional equipment was allowed on the property. Jim Bob was treated as a grandfather, not a producer. It was a massive culture shock for him. For Jana, this sanctuary means she can finally enjoy the boring parts of motherhood. The quiet nights, the private walks in the park, the moments that don't need a hashtag. She's finally living the life Jill and I fought so hard for. The Cinderella of Arkansas is now the queen of her own quiet home in Nebraska, and the Wismans are making sure it stays that way. The Empire's reach ended at the Nebraska border, and Jana has never looked more at peace. One of the most fascinating things about a falling empire is the ripple effect. When the strongest pillar crumbles, the others start to realize they don't have to carry the weight anymore. Jana was that pillar. For years, she was the one who stayed, the one who served, and the one who Jim Bob pointed to as the perfect example. But now that she's gone, and gone on her own terms, a sisterhood of silence is forming within the family. In this segment, I want to talk about how Jana's anti-media vow is impacting her sisters. We're already seeing it with Jinger and Joy. Anna, look at Jinger. She was the first to truly move away and write her book. But even she had to play a certain media game to get her message out. But Jana has chosen total silence. No book deals, no paparazzi-style birth announcements, nothing. And that silence is incredibly powerful. I've noticed a shift in the way the other sisters are handling their own content. Joy Anna, for example, has been much more selective lately. She's started setting boundaries on what she shows of her children, and she's openly supported Jana's privacy. It's like a secret language they're speaking. They are realizing that their children's lives don't have to be a public commodity. Behind the scenes at the big house, the atmosphere is tense. The younger sisters, the ones who are still under Jim Bob's roof, are watching Jana's life in Nebraska through their phone screens. They see her drinking coffee in a quiet garden, far away from camera crews and production meetings. They see her smile, and it's a different kind of smile than the ones they were taught to keep sweet for the cameras. Jana has shown them a third way. You don't have to stay and be controlled, and you don't have to leave and be a public ex-Duggar celebrity. You can just leave. You can just be private. You can just be a mother, a wife, and a woman. That realization is the final nail in the coffin for the Duggar media machine. If the sisters won't film, there is no show, and if there is no show, there is no empire. The rebellion is spreading, and it's a quiet, silent, and unstoppable force. If you drive past the Tontitown compound today, you'll notice something different. The sprawling lawns aren't as manicured as they once were. The massive industrial kitchen designed to feed 20 people at a time is often quiet. You see, the big house wasn't just a home, it was a machine. And that machine was powered by the labor of the older children, specifically Jana Duggar. For years, fans have speculated that Jim Bob and Michelle owed Jana millions in unpaid labor. And now that she's gone, the true cost of her absence is being felt. In this segment, I want to talk about the physical and emotional decay of the Duggar compound. For nearly 2 decades, Jana was the glue. She was the project manager, the interior designer, the gardener, and the primary caretaker for the younger siblings and grandchildren. She managed the renovations and kept the Cinderella lifestyle running so Jim Bob could focus on the brand. But with Jana in Nebraska building her own beautiful renovated fixer-upper, there is no one left to run the big house with that same level of care. We're seeing reports and drone footage that suggests the maintenance is slipping, but it's more than just overgrown grass. It's the loss of the workforce. Jim Bob's system relied on a cycle of older children training the younger ones. But as more siblings like Jill Jinger and now Jana break away, that cycle is broken. The younger kids aren't as willing to step into those roles of perpetual service. They've seen their sisters find freedom, and they aren't interested in maintaining a monument to a lifestyle they no longer believe in. Even the financial upkeep is becoming a burden. With the loss of TLC revenue and the massive legal bills from Josh Appeals, Jim Bob has been liquidating assets. We've seen him selling off portions of the land to companies like Walmart. The empire is literally being sold piece by piece. The big house is becoming a lonely fortress. Jim Bob once prided himself on having all his children under one roof, or at least on the same property. Now, with Jana's exit to Nebraska, that dream is officially dead. The house is still there, but the unpaid labor that kept it shiny for the cameras has moved on. The empire is crumbling, not just in the courts, but in the very foundations of the home they built. This is where Jana has truly outplayed Jim Bob. She didn't just protect herself, she protected the next generation. Jana has signed a minor's privacy trust. This legal document ensures that her son's image, voice, and name cannot be used by the Duggar brand or any associated media company without the express written consent of both parents, consent that we know will never come. She saw the damage of growing up under 24/7 surveillance, and she has built an iron wall around her child. Jim Bob's dream of a new generation spin-off is officially dead. People often ask where Michelle stands. Behind the scenes, the tension is tearing her apart. She loves Jana, but she is bound by Jim Bob's ideology of patriarchal authority. Michelle's recent silent visits to Nebraska without Jim Bob or cameras show a mother trying to reach her daughter in secret. But Jana has made it clear the relationship can only exist if the cameras are off. Michelle is finally realizing that to be a grandmother, she has to stop being a reality TV star. The Wismans are not liberals, but they are private. They represent a shift in the fundamentalist world, moving away from the Duggar-style media circus toward a quiet, self-sufficient lifestyle. Stephen Wisman's family values their reputation in their community more than their fame on television. By aligning with them, Jana didn't just change her last name, she changed her entire social structure. She traded a TV studio for a real family circle, even from a federal prison cell. Josh Duggar's influence looms. Reports suggest Josh has been writing letters to the siblings, trying to maintain spiritual leadership. But Jana's response? Silence. She has completely disconnected from the brother who caused the family's first major downfall. While Jim Bob still visits and defends Josh, Jana's total lack of communication with him is her way of saying she is done with the scandals and the secrets of the past. The math doesn't lie. Without the TLC revenue, the Tontitown compound is an expensive liability. We are seeing Jim Bob sell off more land, equipment, and even some of his beloved car collection. The legal fees for Josh's ongoing appeals are draining the family trust. Jana's refusal to participate in any return to TV specials has left a multi-million-dollar hole in the budget. The Duggar Empire is literally being liquidated to keep the lights on. For years, the media called her Cinderella. They felt sorry for her, stuck in that house while her sisters got married. But Jana was playing the long game. She stayed to protect the younger ones, and now that she's out, she's reclaiming her own story. She isn't a victim anymore. She's the architect of her own life. In Nebraska, she's the one holding the keys. She didn't wait for a prince. She built her own exit strategy. There was a final meeting, a summit of sorts between Jim Bob and the Wistman lawyers. The message was simple: leave Jana alone. No more surprise visits with producers. No more using her name for clickbait. If Jim Bob attempts to monetize Jana's new life, the Wistmans are prepared to go to court. Jana has successfully put her father on permanent mute. This is the first time in his life someone has actually told Jim Bob Duggar no and made it stick. As we conclude this 1 hour deep dive, look at the landscape. The Duggar Empire, once a powerhouse of reality TV, is now a collection of scattered siblings and a quiet house in Arkansas. Jana's anti-media vow was the final blow, but in its place, something better is growing: actual privacy, real relationships, and children who will grow up without a microphone clipped to their shirts. The empire has fallen, but the family, the part that matters, might finally have a chance to heal. I'm Derick Dillard, and thank you for seeking the truth with me